our next guest, who is Sandra Higgins, and she is the founder and director of Eden Farmed Animal Sanctuary and also of Go Vegan World. Sandra, you are very, very welcome to Dundalk FM Business Brunch this morning. We're very happy to have you here.
Thank you, Louisa. I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you. So I really just wanted to talk to you this morning about what led you to starting, I suppose, first Eden Farmed Animal Sanctuary and your journey with that and how you got to that and what happens at the sanctuary now, and maybe to hear about some of the individuals who live there with you. So
the sanctuary actually happened quite by accident. I had no intention of ever doing anything like this. And somebody said to me, you haven't lived until you've had a baby lamb and bottle fed a baby lamb and nursed them. And so a farmer asked us, would we take an orphaned lamb? And we said, well, if we have one lamb, we'd better take another one. So we got another orphaned lamb. So they were both lambs born to mothers who had triplets and weren't able to feed them. So we found ourselves with two lambs on our hands. And actually, we just thought it was great fun. And very quickly, I started to recognise what I now know to be sentience, recognise the fact that they could feel. I remember one day one of them hurt their foot in our yard and they trembled in pain. And not only the negative feelings, but when I saw them jumping for joy, and I looked at their features and I saw that they had eyes. They even have eyebrows and eyelashes. They have a nose and a mouth. They have skin. They have the same senses as us. And it struck me that these individuals can feel, they can suffer. Their lives mean something to them. They're enjoying their lives. And it gradually began to dawn on me that there was something wrong with the system that I was living and that we're all living, where we use them, exploit them, use them as resources, instead of respecting them for the feeling beings that they are, and kill them. And with the research I did, I went vegan not long after that, thinking that maybe my health would suffer and I'd be very deprived, only to find that when I did my research that actually you can have improved health if you eat a healthy plant-based diet. There was no deprivation whatsoever. We are using other animals for things that we don't need.
Mm-hmm. It's true. And I suppose once you make that connection, it's very difficult to unsee it, isn't it? Once you see other animals just as they're like us and they have the same feelings. So what happened after that? So you had two lambs that I suppose that became something that you were advised to do because it would be an enjoyable experience for you, but became about the individuals. So how did it become Eden from there?
Well, from there we rescued 12 chickens, and when I saw them becoming ill, I started to research the egg industry, and I discovered that chickens are just like wild birds, robins or blackbirds. They ideally, in their wild state, they only lay eggs in the breeding season for the purpose of hatching their young, but we selectively breed their bodies so that they lay an egg a day to feed the human demand for eggs, with the result that they die very young. Obviously, the males are killed the day they're born. The females are slaughtered at 18 months. But the ones who live on sanctuaries, we see the effect that this has on their bodies, the type of diseases they suffer, like infection, internal egg laying, prolapse of their reproductive organs, and exceptionally high rates of reproductive cancer, so much so that they're used as a model to study reproductive cancer in human women. Not long after I opened the sanctuary, two goats came onto our land one day, and we brought them back the following day. They lived across the road from us. So somebody said to me, you should go across the road and see all the lovely goats, loads of baby goats. And off I went, as innocent as you like. I mean, I was just beginning to wake up. And I discovered that in order for us to have dairy products, and I was eating a lot of dairy products at the time, in the dairy industry, we take the babies, primarily from cows, but also from sheep and goats. We take the babies from the mothers very soon after birth, sometimes immediately after birth. And as a woman and as a psychologist who had studied attachment theory and how a relationship with your mother or your primary caregiver sets you up for life, really sets your whole psychology up for life, I was absolutely horrified that I had participated in this. Mm-hmm. So we felt then that we had some resources, we had some land, and we wanted to give a home to animals to take them out of these industries. But not long after that, I started to feel really bad that, yes, what we were doing was wonderful, to give a life to these individuals, especially some of the individuals that made a huge impact on us. Like we had a chicken, Matilda, who was such a character. We really loved her. You know, we had got to know the sheep as individuals, but we realised that this wasn't enough, and this was happening at a very local basis, and that we needed to tell people, we needed to tell them who these animals were, what kind of characters and personalities they had, and encourage people to do what we had done. We felt that if people had the information that we had learned about the effects on other animals when we use them, how wrong it is and how unnecessary it is, that they would go vegan too. So Go Vegan World grew from that. It's a very simple campaign, as you can see. A child can understand our ads. Many children do. And they go into school and they talk about them and they make the link between who they've seen and what the ad has said and how they're living their own lives. Yeah. And it comes directly from our knowledge of the individuals who live on the sanctuary, and what they teach us about their personalities and who they are, and the impact of selective breeding on them and their previous lives on them.
Yeah, I know that you use the residents in the sanctuary for the ads as well. So they're real.
Yes,
they're real people in the
ads, they are,
which is really nice as well. And I know it sparks a lot of conversations as well, because your ads are kind of no nonsense and straight to the point, and you know there's just, that's the truth, that's what's there, and it's a great way of reaching people. You know?
Yeah.
I suppose I first came across what you were doing when I rescued some hens, and I think that sparked conversation, because I didn't realise about I was vegan at the time, but I didn't realise about the whole process of eggs, and I was at the time giving eggs away to people because I had the hens in the back garden, and what do you do with the eggs?
Yeah,
realising the story behind it. I suppose there is it is hard, like the information's out there, but it's not always that easy to find it or to see it. But
that's true, yeah, and certainly even among vegans, there's very often a misunderstanding about the effects of our human use of other animals on their bodies and on their lives, and what we deprive them of. And I think our campaign is very rich because it's rooted in the lives of those individuals. So their very presence on the street in public, their photographs are a challenge to the status quo, because you can see the personality shining out of them. And what we've learned, we use implants on the hens in our sanctuary now, which stops them laying eggs. And the reduction in the rate of illness and premature death is absolutely astounding. We have hens at the moment who have been rescued from free-range, organic and enriched cage farms. They all suffer in the same way, regardless of which kind of a farm they've come from, because of the selective breeding and because of the use of implants to stop them laying eggs. Most of those hens that we rescued 6 years ago are still alive, whereas without the implants, nearly the whole flock that we had rescued would be dead within 1.5 to 2 years of illnesses that are directly attributed to laying eggs.
Yeah, it's a huge toll on their body to be creating an egg a day. It's a huge use of resources.
It is, yeah. It's an enormous toll. And if you think of it, maybe not so much nowadays, certainly not in urban areas, but in rural areas, it was regarded as a terrible thing for a child to rob the nest of a wild bird.
Yeah.
You wouldn't dream of taking the eggs from a robin's or a blackbird's nest. And yet we go into the supermarket and we buy eggs. It's the very same thing.
Yeah, it is.
You know, you're taking products that belong to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're taking something that doesn't belong to us, like all the time.
Yes.
So I suppose, would you like to tell us a bit about the residents at Eden at the moment, like who you have living there?
Yeah, there's nearly 250 of them, so I'd be here for another week or another month if I was to talk about all of them. I suppose a lot of us who run sanctuaries are women. Not all of us, but a lot of us. Mm-hmm. And I often think that it's a mother's love that enables us to do the kind of work we do. So we very often have an instinctive feel for when there's something wrong. I couldn't tell you the number of times that we've had somebody in our hospital downstairs, and during the night I woke up and came downstairs and I was with them when they died, almost as if instinctively I knew the right time to be with them. Yeah. So we have a lot of animals. I will say that I love every individual one of them, but you don't have to love other animals to respect them. But in order to respect them, you do have to be vegan. So just in the same way that you don't have to love other races in order to express that, people come from different religions, different races, different genders, different religions. All it boils down to is common decency and respect. Having said that, I suppose there are animals that stand out, sometimes because of what they've survived, sometimes because they're living with maybe a sensory disability, or sometimes just because of the unique characters that they are. And I suppose I couldn't really do an interview without giving credit to Matilda, because she was one of the first hens that we had, and she was so unique. You know, we used to come down in the morning and she would be sitting on the kitchen window. And I used to go mad and say, who left the sanctuary open? But nobody would have left the sanctuary open. Matilda would have flown out over the 6 or 7 foot fence and made her way up to our house and sit at the window and come in and hang around with us while we had our breakfast. While I'd be cooking the dinner, she'd be up on the back of the chair. She knew which drawer in the kitchen the bread and the sunflower seeds were kept in, and she would go there and tap on it until I would open it and give her whatever was in there. And I was absolutely devastated when she died. I mean, everybody who met her thought that she was very unique, extraordinarily unique and very friendly. Now that the years have passed and we've got to know a huge number of hens, we realise she wasn't actually that unique. That there are always, we always have a few friends that are extraordinarily friendly, like she was. Yeah, so she, she is beautiful. Yeah. She stands out for me. We've 2 pigs, Charlotte and Emily, who were rescued about 6 years ago. Actually, the farmer gave them to us because he'd had conversations with me, and he knew that, when I said to him, look, they value their lives as much as we value our lives, he recognised that was true, and he gave us these 2 pigs, and they're absolute characters, completely different. Charlotte is very boisterous, Emily is very boisterous. Charlotte is very gentle and affectionate, and she loves belly rubs. Emily doesn't like belly rubs, but she doesn't like Charlotte to get them either, so she'll shove you out of the way if you're rubbing Charlotte. But they're such characters and absolutely wonderful to have. Yeah. We have Holly, who came to us as a lamb, along with Ben, who we lost yesterday. So we've had a rough week of it. Yeah, sorry to hear that. Yeah, it's awful when you lose them. But Holly is almost completely blind, and she never ceases to amaze me, really. First of all, the way she's able to use the tiny little bit of sight she has to live her life. She's able to get in and out of her house, no problem, find the food, find the water. She can spot you a mile away. She stands with her head on one side, and she knows when you're coming with grain or a bit of holly for her. But she's extraordinarily happy. And everybody who has seen her has said that. She gallops towards us and you can almost see a grin on her face. Yeah. So we have quite a few animals that are coping with disabilities. We have a sheep who lost his foot. We have another sheep whose leg was amputated. So they require a lot of care, and they become very special when you see the kind of the difficult lives that they're living.
So can the three-legged lamb, can he cope with, or she cope with walking on three legs, or do they have a walking aid? Or
well, we are looking into getting prosthetics, but we're wondering whether they might cause additional problems when they are actually managing. And we have the vet has a cat warrant our door. He's not here once a week. If he's listening, he'll smile. He's here several times a week. So we regularly check the stump of, the foot or the leg to make sure there's no infection, no wear and tear, no pain. If they're managing, we'll probably leave well enough alone. But again, we're learning all the time. That's something that we're investigating at the moment. I suppose the cows are very special to us. We rescued Cormac the day he was born, actually, from the dairy industry. And I'll always remember that day that he was rescued, because it was the first time that I had seen face to face how depressed dairy cows are. And this is out in the open. You'll see the cows coming through the fields to be milked. And if you look, they all have their heads down. None of our cows at our sanctuary have their heads down. When we go out there, they literally do a dance. It's absolutely wonderful to see them. And if you contrast with the cows on farms who are being bred, who are losing their babies, who are being milked incessantly, the difference is phenomenal.
Yeah.
So Cormac was the first cow, so he's very special to us. We have a cow called Red, and for 9 of her 11 years, she lived on a dairy farm and lost every baby she ever had. And this year we got a little one called Polly, who wasn't thriving on an animal flesh farm, a beef farm. And Red has adopted Polly as her own, and Polly adores Red, and Red adores Polly. And it's really wonderful to see the bond they have, and to see the way the animals make friends and have favourite friends. They have people that they like to spend time with, the way they protect each other. If we have to get a vet to visit one of them, the others go mad.
Yeah.
They're very worried that their friend might be hurt.
So they have a community. They're a community, a family.
Yes, they are, absolutely. Yeah, quite apart from us. I like to think that we provide the scaffolding. So we provide the basics: the food, the water, the shelter, the nice environment. And we're there keeping a watchful eye on them, that nothing goes wrong. But they are entirely responsible for their own recovery, and for making friends, and for living fulfilling, meaningful lives. And when you think of it, that's all any of us want to do. We just want to be able to meet our basic needs and survive. We all have dreams. We all have things that we want to do. We all want to avoid pain. We all want to be happy. We all want to be at peace. They want to do exactly the same as us.
Yeah, enjoy some sunshine, play in the grass.
Yes, yeah. I come in at night tired and cold after a day's work, and I'm so grateful to be able to have a bath. They do the same. The chickens get into a dust bath. The pigs get into mud. The very same. I'm not saying their feelings are identical, but you can see them enjoying a dust bath in the same way that we enjoy a bath or a shower.
And I jump in, Louise, with a little question, which might or might not be off, and Sandra will tell me if it's not under her purview at all. But I'm curious to know whether our legislation in Ireland is adequate. Legislation against cruelty to animals in general. I know there is specific legislation which was found wanting some years ago.
Well, let me tell you my opinion on that. The legislation we have is called animal welfare legislation. Animal welfare is a set of guidelines that allocates the very minimum standards to other animals to fatten them up until they're ready to be slaughtered. It legislates for the grinding alive of chicks the day they're born, the gassing of chickens and pigs, the violent, brutal slaughter on farms and in slaughterhouses. It has nothing to do with animal rights. It is absolutely not in animals' favour. And that's why we never speak about animal welfare. It's animal rights that we're interested in. And animal rights just means respecting that because other animals feel and because they value their lives the same as we value our lives, we don't have the right to own them or breed them or use products that involve exploiting them and killing them. So clothes, anything that was tested on another animal, because most animals who are exploited by the food industry, because we create a demand for eggs, fish, flesh, and dairy. Diet forms a huge part of how we exploit them. Now, veganism isn't a diet, but because most of the animals that we exploit come from animal agriculture and are used as food, most of the rights that we talk about are their rights not to be used as food. That's not the only one. Veganism is not a diet for sure, and animals have other rights apart from not being used as food. But most of the animal welfare legislation is written about farming, using other animals for food or clothing. And all it does is maintain in the mind of the consumer, and I was one of those consumers until very recently, maintains in the mind of the consumer that there is something actually lovely about farming, that it's natural, nice, necessary and natural. And it is none of those things. It is appalling. What we do to other animals through animal welfare legislation and farming and animal use is appalling. And the secondary effects on humans in terms of climate change, environmental destruction, human disease like pandemics that come from our use of other animals is backfiring on us big time. So I'm really glad that you asked me that question, because there was a time when I thought animal welfare was in the interests of other animals, about being kind to other animals, about loving other animals. Yeah. And now that I've learned differently, I know it's none of those things, and it actually has nothing even to do with kindness. It's about respecting their rights, even though they're different from us.
Thank you, Sandra. Great question, Brendan. Thanks very much, Sandra, for joining us today. We've got to go into a break now. And after the break, we're going to hear Fiachna O'Brien on Can You See It in Me from his EP, More Late Night Tales.